Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Pago Muradian here at the Surface Navy Association's annual conference and trade show just outside Washington, D.C., the #1 gathering of United States Navy Surface Force leaders and indeed leaders from across the Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard team. We're partnered with the Surface Navy Association in covering this show, where our coverage is sponsored by Huntington Ingalls Industries, General Electric Marine, L3 Technologies, and Leonardo DRS. And we're over here at the HII stand to talk to Steve Sloan, the man, the myth, the legend on the LPD-17 program that continues to chug ahead, and George Nungesser, who is with the DDG-51 program at sunny Ingalls. Both of you are down on the Gulf Coast, and yes, for all of you World War I military aviation fans, he is related to the legendary French ace Charles Nungesser. So we got that going. Who had one of the coolest emblems on a fighter aircraft ever installed. I'll let you guys look that up on the YouTube. George, give us an update on the program. DDG-51 Flight III is very, very important for the Navy. Key decision made a few years ago to truncate the DDG-1000 program and press ahead with the 51s. Talk to us a little bit about where you are on the program, but also how the program importantly differs from the 2A baseline that I think has been in service now for a few years.
Good.
And is actually still continue to be delivered actually while all of this is going on.
Thank you. Very excited to be here at SNA today and to be able to talk about the DDG-51 program. Right now we're in Flight 2A. We have 4 ships left. We're getting ready to deliver our third Flight 2A from the restart. It'll deliver the first quarter of 2019. Had 3 more Flight 2As to add to that, and then DDG-125, Jack Lucas, will be our first Flight 3, which was actually a Flight 2 early on, moved to a Flight 3. Difference between the Flight 2A and a Flight 3 basically is power and cooling. You need more power and cooling to be able to support the Spy 6 versus the Spy 1D. When looking at that, we've already started fab on DDG-125. We started in May of last year. And our next major milestone will be at the end of this year where we'll lay the keel. We've already started some unit construction on Flight 3, so it's not a paper ship. It's a real ship if you come down to Pascagoula, Mississippi and look at it. Along with that, some of the things that some of the material that we are procuring today, or some of the stuff that we are actually procuring, or LPDs procuring. The 300-ton AC plants. I think Steve just received his 300-ton AC plants, and we will be receiving ours this first quarter. Power conversion modules for the electric plant, basically already at the shipyard. So there's about 9 pieces of equipment that support the new Flight 3 base, and all of that should be in within the next 3 to 6 months.
And launch on the first 3 is going to be when?
Lay the keel will be at the end of this year. Launch will be the end of 21.
Wow, pretty decent schedule you're making on it. So last year, Steve, we talked. There was great excitement. You guys got the contract. So essentially, LXR is LPD-17 and onwards. Bring us up to speed on where you guys are on the program and deliveries, and as you ramp to the new flight ships.
Thank you very much, Vago. Right now we have 2 ships under construction at Ingalls LPD-28 Fort Lauderdale, which is nearing half complete. She's stacked up with a lot of the units now, starting to look like a ship. We've begun construction on every unit on the ship. We also have LPD-29, the Richard McCool Jr., and she is just a small percentage complete. That was the contract that we had earned last year. Also last year, the Navy put out a request for proposal, did say that they would designate the LXR ships as LPD Flight II, part of the San Antonio baseline. We're in negotiations currently, expect to wrap that up here in the next couple of months, but we're off buying material for LPD-30, the first Flight II ship, as George alluded to, air conditioning plants, big piece of equipment, main propulsion engines, and so forth. So the big changes from Flight 1 to Flight 2 is readiness to take additional aviation assets such as the CH-53 Kilo, ready for the surface ship, surface-to-shore connector that the Marines are buying, and it really has all the bells and whistles that an LPD has, the Flight 1 LPDs, so that when they're deploying, you've got a seaport, an airport, a hospital, a C4I ship, a rescue ship, and pretty much anything else the warfare commanders want to look for.
Well, you know, LCG-1 just completed its first deployment with Wayne E. Meyer and Somerset down to Latin America, and the capability of that combination, which you know was part of the Expeditionary Strike Group concept as well, right? In 2004, that came out with 2 pointy ends and one big deck, and kind of the integration capabilities you get out of the ship.
There'll be a lot of lessons learned from that, undoubtedly, and that'll enable the commanders to develop various force packages going forward for all kinds of missions.
George, let me ask you, you know, you're on the pointy end side, he's on the less pointy end side, although it's pretty pointy, especially if it hits me a beam. Talk to us a little bit about the lessons you learned, because both of you are trying to achieve driving down costs, but go up on the learning curve as quickly as you can. Even though you've built this ship before and you've built this ship before, there's a whole series of leadership above you that wants you to build it better, faster, and cheaper as it goes on. What are some of the lessons you guys share to try to get to that best place for, you know, whether it's best practices, it's best technology, best design, or best manufacturing?
One of the bigger areas that we look at early on is how we can do material procurement more efficiently. And what we have down here with the 4 major programs going on down at Pascagoula, and then with the major programs going up at Newport News, is how can we bundle and get economic quantities, orders of quantity, right? EOQ. I think we've done a very good job with that with the DDGs, and I know we're doing the same thing with the LPDs. The other aspect is labor, right? So the best thing that can happen to us is that we put these things in serial production. And that's what you're seeing on DDGs and LPDs. If we can just keep the line going and move have crew stationalization, where you move a crew that does one thing on 125, moves 9 months later and does the same thing on 128, then you get the most efficient labor efficient capitalization that you can get.
George is exactly right. The other thing is, of course, Ingalls and the Navy and the state of Mississippi are making tremendous investments in the shipyard. We call it Shipyard of the Future. We are tripling the amount of space under cover so that the shipbuilders are not out in the hot sun on a Mississippi summer day, nor are they getting rained on. And then the other thing is we break the ship down, just as you'd imagine, into weekly statements of work and monthly and quarterly statements of work. And we have a tremendous history of lessons learned, where injuries occur, where mishaps happen, where one crew has done something particularly well and somebody didn't do it nearly as well. And we have a very robust program as we go into each quarter of setting ourselves up for success by reviewing those lessons learned, talking through them, and mitigating the risks so that we can be better on the next ship than we were on the one before.
All right, so you're both experienced ship guys, Navy guys. You know where it's at. We heard from the SURF4. We heard from the Surface Warfare Requirements boss, Admiral Boxall, about a large surface combatant. Bob Work, as I recall, who was Deputy Defense Secretary in the Under, thought that the LPD-17 was the best hull form for a future large surface combatant. You're building a large surface combatant. As you guys heard that presentation, what do you think that future surface combatant starts to look like? I know we're a little bit far away from the requirements being set out for that, but he said volume, power, and cooling, and the combination of your 2 ships are all about volume, power, cooling, connectivity, and everything else. Steve, you want to kick that off?
I'll just say, the customer has said that they're going to maintain the combat system that they have in Georgia's ship in the DDG Flight III, and they're going to take a look at hull form and the HM&E package, and certainly a variant of the LPD I would think would be contender in terms of if they want to stay with a current hull form, and gas turbines could be put in a platform like that, but it's really up to the Navy as they come through their studies exactly what they're looking for.
And what's the hull speed? It's something I can't believe. I don't know. It's 20, what, on the 17?
On the 17, it's about 22 knots, and with more power, it can go faster.
Yeah, I could go faster with a lot more power, too, although you would need a lot more power.
Yeah, I'll just say the same thing that Steve said. It's early on. I'm sure there's trade studies that we'll be privy to that the Navy's already done, and then we'll move forward on that.
How much volume margin do you have on the Flight III ultimately, right? Because that's a question that's come up, whether it's for hybrid propulsion or a whole bunch of other things, that 51 hull is approaching the end of its sort of useful volume. Can you guys eke out a little bit more space in that in future blocks of the ships?
Well, I don't know about future blocks of what you're talking about from a Flight III perspective. The weight margin is about the same. We did some reductions early on in the design to be able to get Flight III down to what the Flight IIA weight margin is today. So there was not that much of a gain on weight margin.
George Nungesser, as well as Steve Sloan from Huntington Ingalls Industries, from Ingalls Shipbuilding in sunny Pascagoula, Mississippi. Guys, thanks very much. Fairman's following seas on your programs. It's always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.